Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the online version of Mr. Nagel and Mr. Sickler's World Geography. This is going to be over Consumption Chapter 7. Let's just jump right into it, I guess. So, for this chapter, there's a few things we have to talk about that are kind of important when dealing with the next couple features we're going to be talking about. And that is develop versus developing. And that's when we're talking about countries. A country is either developed or is in the process of being developed and is developing. Some properties of a developed country are they have an advanced economy, good healthcare system, good educational system, possible high-tech industries. Some examples of these developing countries are like the United States, China, most of Europe, and then we have developing. So developing is countries that have a poor economy, less industry, and a poor education system. Some of these countries are like India or Mexico, for example. And the reason we bring these two terms up, develop and developing, is for the next thing we're going to be talking about, and that's cartograms. A cartogram is a type of map. So when we look at cartograms, we're going to look at them through the eye lens of either being developed or developing. Let's check this out. So what is a cartogram map? A cartogram map is similar to some of the thematic maps that we've looked at in the past. And just a quick refresher on thematic maps. Thematic maps are types of maps especially designed to show a particular theme connected with a specific geographic area. These maps can portray physical, social, political, cultural, economic, sociological, agricultural, any other aspect of a city, state, region, nation, or continent. Some of the ones we've looked at were the economic maps, or land use maps, or possible vegetation zone type maps. A cartogram map is similar, but it is a map that shows variables such as time travel, population, or gross national product, or GDP, that we've talked about yesterday in class. The geometry of the space on the map is distorted in a way to convey the information of this alternative variable. It's going to be big for when there's more of something, and it's going to be smaller when there's less. So if there's a higher population in one country versus another, that country is going to be very large to demonstrate or to show that it's got a large population, and that other country would be quite small to show that it's got a smaller population. This goes for wealth and for the gross national product as well. So let's take a look at some of these possible maps. So this is a world population map, and as you can see, India and China are huge, and we know that that's the case because they have over 1.1 billion people living there. And the United States is fairly large over here as well, but it's nothing compared to what India and China are. So as you see in these maps here, or in this map here, that the largest countries displayed on this are the ones with the biggest population. And the smaller countries are ones that have smaller populations. So if you look at a lot of Latin America over here in this region, you can see that they're quite small countries, but they're only showing population. And if we again look over here in the key, we see the word developed countries and being in orange, and developing countries in green. Sorry about that. So let's go look at the next one. So this is the food consumption around the world in 2002, and it's per capita. Per capita means per person. So this is looking at the food consumption per person around the world in 2002. Again, looking at the key, the developed countries are in yellow and orange, and the developing countries are in green or blue. And we look at this, and we can see that where the largest amount of food consumption actually is in the world and where the least amount of food consumption is. This tells us a lot about where food is going, what resources need to go where, and so on and so forth. Let's take a look at the next one. So this is one that shouldn't really blow anyone away to see that the United States is one of the larger uh, users and consumers of oil in the world. But it is surprising to me to see how these developing countries are using so much oil. Just look at South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. All these are developing countries, yet they're using a lot of barrels of oil per capita, so per person per year. Again, it's really important to look at the key to understand what we're talking about and the colors associated with the countries. This map is about personal computer consumption around the world in 2003. And it shouldn't be surprising to see that the United States and Canada are fairly large, and using over 40 people are using computers per around the world in 2003. And this is each square represents one personal computer per 50 people. So that's 40 times 50 for those one square for the United States and Canada and the other developed countries. But then look again over here in some of these other countries, specifically India, which you can barely see. They have a population over 1.2 billion people, and yet there's barely any computer use per person in India. That tells us a lot about the economy, their culture, and just the overall ways people go about their lives in that country. So these cartogram maps really tell us a lot, even though they're not really showing us the actual shape of these countries, but showing us how much of something they have in it, the consumption. Here's the gross domestic product, which is, as we talked about today in class or yesterday in class, it is the total goods sold in a given country in 1 year. So you look at America, the United States, Canada, most of Europe, but not Western Europe. Western Europe is actually relatively smaller than Eastern Europe, or excuse me, Western Europe is a lot fairly larger than Eastern Europe. And in these maps, you can see a lot of different things going on here. You can look at population. You know, population-wise, that the United States is very not even really in comparison to places like China, and yet China's gross domestic product is relatively small in 2004. So it's very interesting to look at these types of maps to kind of figure out what's going on in these regions, what's the consumption rates, what are people doing in these countries, and that's why it's pretty vital to understand how to use and read these maps. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, please get a hold of me or Mr. Nagel. I'm sorry that I kind of stumbled around a little bit. This is the first time I've used this, and I hope to use it again. All right, see ya.